What is going on, everyone? It's your boy, Skeletor SG, coming back with some details on the remaster of the 2003 classic SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. While this game came out right on the heels of The Last of Us Part 2, there was no way I was passing up on one of my childhood favorite games. How much of the classic remains? Is there any new content besides the facelift? How do the mechanics hold up? Whatever reason you're here, this is Skeletor. Should you buy Spongebob Squarepants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated? Released on June 23rd, just 4 days after The Last of Us, there was little coverage on this remaster's release. While there seems to be mixed reviews, major companies like IGN slapped a 5 out of 10 on this game, leaving it behind for a lot of gamers. But after obtaining my Platinum trophy with around 10 hours of play, I've got some more info to help you determine if this game is for you. Released on every single platform, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated is a beautiful remaster of the 2003 classic following the story of SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy having to clean up Bikini Bottom after Plankton creates an army of robots meant to help him steal a Krabby Patty formula. However, in classic Plankton fashion, he began the process of duplicating robots with his Duplicatitron 3000 machine, only he set the machine to copy with the Do Not Obey function set. As a result, the robots caused disaster all throughout some of the most iconic locations from the TV series like Rock Bottom, Jellyfish Fields, the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard, and 7 other whimsical, nonsensical locations. SpongeBob and friends must battle their way to the Chum Bucket to stop the production of robots and ultimately shut down Plankton's nefarious plot. There's really not much more to add to this. This is a tried and true recreation of the classic title with very little new additions other than some later game boss battles and multiplayer. However, I knew getting into this game wasn't going to be recollecting on a profound story experience, but more was looking for a nostalgia fest filled with hilarious references from the show and a pretty fun gameplay loop. Battle for Bikini Bottom brings the classical platforming splendor of nautical nonsense to the modern generation. While the visuals received a massive overhaul, the gameplay is almost identical to its predecessor, for better or for worse. The basic gameplay loop requires SpongeBob to navigate levels to find golden spatulas that help unlock further levels. In conjunction with golden spatulas, you have to help Patrick find his lost socks, 10 of which he gives you a golden spatula for. You can also use the sparkly objects, which is the game's currency, to buy golden spatulas from Mr. Krabs for an increasing value each time. So the use of the primary collectible in the game has one major payout and various spots and levels to unlock more functions of that level. The early levels in Battle for Bikini Bottom are a nostalgia trip of pure platforming greatness. The controls of the game are very simple and quite frankly pretty smooth. SpongeBob has his jump and double jump equipped with the Bubble Wand basic attack, a Bubble Bounce vertical attack, and a Bounce Bomb attack, going down with a couple of skills learned in the later game. SpongeBob's skill set also entails him to be able to use certain things like jump walls in certain levels, as well as to use bungee jumping fish hooks to obtain, you guessed it,
more golden spatulas.
However, each of the characters has their own unique skill that makes switching between them both a fresh take on the core game, but also helps you unlock new areas and solve deeper puzzles for more
golden spatulas.
Patrick can carry large fruit to throw, as well as stun enemies to pick up and throw, while Sandy, being arguably the best character, can use her lasso to not only hover over gaps, but extend to her jumps and defeat harder enemies with one single lasso. In classic fashion, your easy trip of shenanigans ends quick as you progress, enemies becoming more abundant, aggressive, and the platforming becomes more challenging. I think challenging is subjective because the systems are definitely not hard. The timing to these platforms just as well, but outdated enemy systems like enemy pop-up and general awful hit detection will lead to some rather frustrating scenarios. The fact that some of these platforms require tight maneuvering and specific timing, coupled with enemies right in front of you that do area of effect damage, the results which can be devastating, and the checkpoints rather unforgiving. But at the end of the day, there's no penalty for death other than unreasonably frequent load screens. On top of that, collectibles don't go away if you're in between checkpoints, so it just functions as more of an inconvenience than anything. On top of that, bosses are mindlessly easy, mostly requiring you to run around and avoid damage until you can come in for a swift hit and move on. Some didn't even seem like they needed a level, like it could have just been at the end of a level. My longest encounter, being the final boss, ran just under 6 minutes. But this game offers a classic and sometimes wacky approach to platforming. Its technical limitations and direct lack of improvements leaves a sour taste in your mouth for a game that's $30 and takes 5 hours to beat. But if you're a fan of the original like myself, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of modern games give us collectibles and fetch items and try and provide some intrinsic motivation as to why they are valuable, but staying true to its roots, these collectibles are merely a marker on your road to 100%. There are some new caveats such as the unreleased boss content in multiplayer mode, but nothing that really made me feel engaged like I did as a kid, but that's just that. This is a remaster of a kid's game for kids. I just didn't feel the wow the way I did for Crash and Spyro. And normally I'd transition to the audio-visual here, but it's like, the audio is the exact same. Some awesome SpongeBob tunes, the classic narrator, iconic voices, but they're just remastered versions of the 2003 game. There's no new dialogue, the game's facelift is night and day, providing a great level of depth to SpongeBob and the game's idle animations and more, and their attacks as well as the animations in between. This isn't a bad thing nor a criticism, just hardly enough to gloat about in an entire section dedicated to it. It was far from bad, it looked in line with modern SpongeBob animation, but everything else kind of just got bootstrapped to the visual overhaul and got called good. Battle for Bikini Bottom is $30 on all platforms. I achieved my platinum trophy in about 10 hours, and I'm not disappointed I did. Granted, I had store credit from Best Buy and paid $5 for the game. However, with the myriad of titles available this year, discounts on last year's best games, and even signing up for Xbox Game Pass for PC for the equivalent of 6 months of the price of this game, there's just hordes of games I'd recommend on the market that should have your attention rather than this. The game is a ton of fun, the gameplay still holds up as basic as it is. The fun and sometimes mildly challenging sets of puzzles and platforming strikes a nerve of nostalgia, especially as you watch the bus for Rock Bottom pass you by when looking at the candy machine. But for $30, you're better off saving for something coming out next month like Ghost of Tsushima or Paper Mario and the Origami King. This game is fun if you can pay very little for it, but expect that it will see a dip in price soon enough, if not a free game on a service in the near future.